I've been investing for about 3 years now, and at 19 years old, I've built an investment portfolio worth just over $45,000. And I want to be clear straight away, this did not come easy at all. There was no secret strategy or overnight success, and definitely no genius level decision making involved. I made a huge pile of mistakes along the way, and honestly, that's the entire reason I'm making this video. If you take one thing away from this, let it be this: don't repeat the same mistakes I did. Whether you're younger than me, older than me, or right around my age, greed will destroy you if you don't learn how to control it. Humans are naturally greedy. We want results fast, big wins, validation, and the market absolutely preys on that. When I was 16, I first got into Bitcoin mining. I know it's a pretty random hobby for a kid in high school, but I was still interested in computers and performance. I was gaming a lot at the time, and I figured out that I could mine crypto on my gaming PC while I was just doing schoolwork. I spent hours tweaking my setup, overclocking, undervolting my GPU, lowering wattage, trying to be as efficient as possible, and over time, I made around $1,000. Now, to an adult, $1,000 definitely isn't life-changing, but to a 16-year-old who had never really earned money before, that felt kind of insane. It genuinely felt like free money, even though we were paying for electricity. And that's where the problem started. That early success planted this idea in my head that making money in markets was easy. I hadn't learned risk yet, I hadn't learned discipline, I just saw the numbers go up. So naturally I got curious about crypto itself, and this is where the greed completely took over. I jumped straight into altcoins with absolutely zero understanding of how the market worked. No strategy, no risk management, and no exit plan. I was just chasing the idea of a 10x, and predictably, I lost over $500. Now look, $500 isn't the end of the world, but again, I was 16. That money definitely hurt, but more importantly, the emotional hit hurt. It shocked me, and honestly, it scared me enough that I completely stepped away from crypto for the entire year I was 17. And this is something I've noticed is almost universal. People have one of two reactions after their first real big loss. Either they quit investing entirely and decide it's all a scam, or it forces them to reflect, learn, and actually understand risk. I'm very grateful I didn't quit forever, I just took a step back. That year of doing nothing was actually one of the most important phases of my investing journey. I didn't trade, I didn't invest, I didn't pretend I knew what I was doing, I just watched. And in hindsight, not investing because you know you're uneducated is infinitely smarter than investing badly because you're overconfident. As I was approaching 18 and about to graduate school, I started getting interested in stocks. I was already trying to improve my life in other areas, working more, studying, getting fitter, and I realized that the way I approached crypto at 16 was genuinely stupid. Not because crypto itself is bad, but because I was a teenager with no clue and no emotional control. I was literally just a speck in the ocean. So I did what most people do. I started watching investors on YouTube. I learned about individual stocks, ETFs, leverage, dividends, growth portfolios, all of it. And at first, it felt like I was finally doing things the right way. But then I made another mistake. I made a Twitter account. This was probably one of the worst decisions I made in the last 3 years. Twitter dragged me straight back into the same mindset I had at 16. Crypto influencers were literally everywhere. People my age supposedly making millions with 50 times leverage, screenshots of insane gains, and somehow I convinced myself that that was completely normal, that this time would be different because I was older and more educated. I'll tell you now, I definitely wasn't. For about 4 months, I was completely consumed by crypto again. Charts, Twitter threads, Discord groups, influencers. It took over my attention. And once again, I lost about another $1,000. I even watched one of my altcoins hit a 5x and didn't take a single dollar out. You're allowed to roast me for that because it still hurts till this day. But that loss was the final straw. It coincided with a massive crypto market dump, and that's when it finally clicked. I was done. Not temporarily, I was just done with crypto. I realized that if I kept going down this path, I would never build anything stable. So I cut it off completely. I deleted Twitter, I unsubscribed from crypto YouTubers, I stopped consuming content that made me feel like I was missing out, and instead, I leaned fully into stocks. Around this time, my life was getting a bit more serious. I was working about 32 hours a week, studying full time, and I finally had a consistent income. That changed everything. Investing suddenly wasn't about getting rich. It was about not screwing up what I was earning. At 18, I opened my first proper stock portfolio. And yeah, I know that sounds late considering I'm only 19 now, but that's reality. When I started, I was initially interested in individual stocks, but crypto taught me something very important. I am not smarter than the market, and more importantly, I didn't have the time to pretend I was. While I was working 32 hours a week and studying full time, I didn't have the mental capacity to track earnings calls, news cycles, and company fundamentals, so I looked towards ETFs. And even then, I didn't get it perfect. Like most beginners, I got overwhelmed by the idea of diversification, so I bought multiple ETFs that were basically overlapping. I started with VTI, then I wanted dividend income, so I added SCHD, then I added a real estate ETF for even more dividends. Eventually, I realized I was overcomplicating everything again, and that's when I made the simplest, smartest decision of my entire investing journey. I bought the S&P 500, the most boring, basic investment possible, something I could have done years earlier if I wasn't distracted by hype in my ego. And honestly, this lesson applies to life in general. We avoid simple solutions because they don't feel as impressive, but we always end up coming back to them. From that point on, my strategy became painfully simple. Every dollar I earned went into the S&P 500. There was no emotion or timing or noise from external media, and over time, my portfolio grew to over $45,000. Today, I don't need to check charts obsessively, I don't care what influencers are saying, and I don't stress about market headlines. My portfolio literally follows the market, and I let compounding do its job while I focus on university, my career, and improving my income. The mental freedom alone was worth every mistake I made earlier. What really surprised me through all of this wasn't just how my portfolio grew, but how much my mindset changed. When I first started, I thought investing was about being right. I thought it was about timing entries, finding hidden opportunities, and somehow proving to myself that I was smarter than everyone else in the market. And that mindset is exactly what kept setting me back. Every loss hurt more than it should have because I tied my self-worth to my portfolio. If my investments were down, I felt like I was failing as a person. That's such a dangerous way to think, and I know a lot of people watching this are stuck in the exact same cycle right now. So if you hear me, just stop it, bro. Once I simplified everything, that pressure completely disappeared. I stopped caring about being right, and I started caring about being consistent. I realized that investing isn't meant to entertain you. It's not supposed to give you dopamine. It's supposed to be boring, repetitive, and honestly, forgettable. And the moment I accepted that, everything got a little easier. I wasn't waking up stressed about market moves. I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. I wasn't constantly comparing myself to strangers online who may or may not even be telling the truth. Another thing I learned is that discipline compounds just like money does. The habits I built by investing consistently bled into the rest of my life. I became better with my time, more intentional with my spending, and more patient in general. I stopped chasing shortcuts. I stopped looking for hacks. I just focused on doing the same small things correctly over and over again. And that's something I never learned from any influencer or course. I learned it by failing multiple times. Look, I messed up a lot in 3 years. I lost money, I wasted time, and I fell for hype. I felt stupid. But those mistakes taught me the most important lesson of all. Investing isn't about being smarter. It's about being consistent, patient, and humble enough to know your limits. If you're watching this thinking you need to be perfect, you literally don't, bro. I am the literal definition. I am the dumbest person in this market. If you think you need to start with a big amount, you definitely don't. All you need is a strategy you can stick with without sabotaging yourself. Greed will always be there, and the markets will always tempt you to go all in. The hard part is learning how to ignore it. And if you can do that, you'll already be ahead than everyone else your age. Good luck.